As we honor the 23rd anniversary of September 11th, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum continues its mission to inspire, educate, and remember the past while shaping future generations. Here to reflect on the significance of this moment in history and the work ahead is Kate Levy, member of the Visionary Network Leadership Council. Hello, Kate. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so Kate, I wanted to start off and ask you if you could tell me a little bit about why this cause is particularly so meaningful to you.
Absolutely. I was 10 years old when I lost my dad on 9/11. He was a New York City fireman, a lieutenant at Ladder 15, which was right by the site at the South Street Seaport. And his company was one of the first fire companies to get to the scene. And he passed away in the South Tower. And his company reached the 78th floor of the impact zone. For me, you know, as a way to remember my dad and honor 9/11 and all those who passed away and served and even are still living with the effects from 9/11. It is important for me to be part of the 9/11 Memorial Museum and the Visionary Network, which we strive to educate the next generation about the events of 9/11 and also the events of 9/12 as well, which is something that's very meaningful for me in terms about sharing my story and educating the next generation of what 9/12 meant to our communities and a way of which it taught us so much about resiliency and strength.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your father with 9/11. And you had also mentioned the importance of 9/12. Could you talk about what that means a little bit more to you, 9/12?
Yeah, the way that our communities came together after 9/11 is something that is so vivid in my memory of my small town where I grew up in Pelham, New York, just New York as just how people coming together, spreading, acts of kindness, just the smallest hello or gesture, and just also in way in which we all came together despite our differences. I think that 9/12 is such a pivotal moment of unity, and it's really what the museum also really embodies about bring everyone together and also recognizing we all have a 9/11 story, and for those who are not born yet, ways in which they can connect to that day and that aftermath through different accounts of the museum tells, artifacts and stories. And I think that it's a really beautiful place in terms of which we can educate the next generation. And I mean, you can't physically have digital experience, which is broadcast all across the country on 9/11. And every year there are different people who have a connection to 9/11 and where they tell their personal accounts. And it's a really wonderful way, for students to be able to connect the events to 9/11 through a real, through storytelling.
And I mean, you mentioned we all have a 9/11 story. We all remember exactly where we were at that moment when that happened. And I'm glad that you mentioned 9/12, the day after, just kind of how we all worked to rebuild all over the world. And we all were just very connected after this unfortunate incident had happened. But it's almost hard to imagine that there's some people who don't remember this. So it's estimated 100 million Americans have been born since September 11th, 2001. What's your message to our youngest generation about what happened that day?
Yeah, I think that 9/11 for me, what happened that day there was a lot of darkness, but there was also a lot of light. A camp I used to go to, we would always say the phrase, "'Tis better to light a candle than curse the darkness." And that is, I think, the message that's for the next generation to really learn about the events of 9/11, to
Kate,
of course honor and remember all of the.
Kate, how can people best support the memorial and museum? Like you're mentioning, honoring what had happened. How can people best support?
By checking out the 9/11 Memorial Museum website, joining their digital learning experience, especially for those who are teachers, who are educators, parents as well. They can join with their their young ones, and also for our young professionals, like join the Visionary Network. We are always doing events to be able to, tell the story of 9/11 through different lenses, and most importantly, being able to help educate the next generation. And so, by joining the Vision Network, which is also you can find on the 9/11 Memorial Museum website as well, that is something that is really big about being able to continue the legacy of 9/11.
Kate, very helpful information. Thank you again for your time today and enlightening our viewers as well as the next generation. And as she mentioned, for more information, you can visit 911memorial.org.